The views and opinions expressed during Love and Life with Lana and Dave are those only of the speakers and guests and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or the position of our podcast hosts or affiliates. Any content provided is not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, club, organization, company, individual, anyone, or anything. All right, let's do it.
You're listening to Love and Life with Lana and Dave, the podcast where logic is power and you take control. Thank you for tuning in and making the choice to listen in and get ideas for your own love and life. Now, here are your hosts, Lana Williams and David Vaccaro.
Trigger warning. This episode may contain discussions of violence, sexual abuse, and addiction issues. Please listen at your discretion. Happy Thursday. This episode is a double-parter. So please stay with us for the next episode, which should be dropping tomorrow. All right, here we go with Double Standards. Enjoy.
Well, hello, I'm David.
Hey, you're David.
I am.
Where have you been, Dave?
None of your business. It's a secret. Of course,
well,
you already know.
Yes, I do. I do, but I like to, our listeners, all three of them.
Yeah.
I'd like to be surprised and shocked that you're sitting here and be like, Dave, where have you been?
Yeah. So for all of you that reached out to me and asked, are you not in the podcast anymore? I heard Lana doing one by herself. She explained I listened to the podcast. You know that, right? So yeah. I did listen to the podcast, and she mentioned a couple times that I just had some things going on. And if you need to know, I was sick. So there's that. And, I got some other things going on as well. It's none of your damn business. That's what it is. But
yeah, some personal stuff. But I mean, You know what I think it is? I think that the listeners missed you, Dave. It was a heartfelt thing, even though they're being kind of nosy and bossy and stuff.
Yeah, right.
They maybe, maybe they just, miss the dynamic of you being around. So they were just kind of
we definitely have a dynamic. There's no question. And by the way, When I was saying none of your business, I was talking to you guys, not Lana.
No, I know it's all about my business. Let me tell you.
Right. Yes. She has to know my business. Otherwise, I'm fired.
Mm-hmm. I have the ability to fire, and it is the holidays. I really hate to fire Dave in the holidays. That's not nice.
I know.
That would be terrible.
What would I do for that $0 an hour that we make doing this?
I don't know. You're half a coffee. See, we get a coffee.
We get coffee
because you guys give us coffee, right? And then we both have a coffee. But if I fire him, I get 2 coffees. So you see how nice it would be for me if I did.
Yeah, but you still have to pay all the bills.
Yeah.
You still have to pay. There are bills that come with doing this, you guys.
Right.
So just so you know, when we ask for coffee, we're not saying we do. It's not income. I promise you.
No, it isn't. No, it isn't.
It's not. We're still running at a loss, which is fine. I enjoy it, and I look at that. It's very fun for me to do. It's good for my mental health doing this.
So Dave and I said this. We're like, if long as it's fun.
That's right.
We're going to do it, right? So even if we not looking, obviously it would be great if we started rolling in dough doing this, right? Because it would be a secondary thing. It would be a nice bonus, but that's not why we started it.
Yeah, I mean, come on. Joe Rogan what's he get paid? Like $20 million, I think he gets a year to do his podcast on.
I don't know.
If somebody wants to offer us, we'll take $100 million a year, and we'll be happy with it. And
I think I'd even take 50.
50 million? Yeah, 25 million a piece. We'd be all right with that. Sure.
I'd be all right with that. Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying that
even
if you want to give us 100, we'll say no.
Even if what would suck though, because once you get paid to do it, you have to do it. And I think, it's kind of like music, Playing music always was exciting for me and great. Like right now, I'm recording at my own pace whenever I want to record. I don't have a label going, you need this done by this time. And
I know.
Well, God, I can't think of a song to write. So now what? No, I have no choice. You got to come up with something. And that's why so many bands.
I will tell you this. If I made, in this imaginary world that we're creating, if I made $100 million a year, I think I could take some time off.
Right.
And think of some things to do podcasts about. I think I would be able to come up with some topics pretty easily.
I think we would rent a bus and we would travel around the country and literally hunt down stories.
We could do that.
Yeah,
we could do that. But we would have a research team. There would definitely be no
right
limit to the content and we had. And then it would just be a matter of, I think we would just be so bogged down with content. Our confusion would be like, what things should we do? With too many things to think about.
Right.
So I think that's
the thing. So you guys better pick it up with the coffee.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hear all these plans we got? That's up to you guys. Yeah.
We'll do all that as soon as we can. Oh my God, we're going to be fantastic as soon as everybody's.
Yeah. What is a coffee? $5 is what it is.
Maybe.
Coffee that is $5. So just how many? So you need
math.
Yeah,
I'm at the end of the day for me some math. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
20 million coffees.
Okay.
You guys can hit.
Yeah, that's about right.
Coffees. Let's start today. Don't forget, we're going to start this off with the coffee now because we've talked about it. You can buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/Lana and Dave. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So guess what we're talking about today?
Oh, we are talking about double mint, double agent. No.
Double standards. Yes. And double standards is so much fun. And I actually was just having a conversation with somebody. So
I don't know if they're fun. I think it depends on what side of the double standard you live on.
Well, no, I think double standards are stupid.
Okay.
They're fun.
Well, they're fun.
They're fun because they're fun to discuss because when somebody I'm making a face right now. Ready? Here comes the face. When somebody says something that's a double standard, this is the face I make. Like, what? So I'm making this what face? Like, what?
Yeah.
So because it doesn't even make sense. So I was just talking to a female friend of mine, and she was saying how now, as you all know, I'm a pretty busy guy. I stay pretty busy. I'm an active guy. I don't have a lot of time. So in the dating world, do I have a lot of time to date and do? Not really, but that's accepted. Right? They're accepting the fact that I have to work a lot. She works a lot as well. She works 80 hours a week. And guess what? Guys can't handle it. That would be a double standard. Why is it okay for a guy to say, hey, listen, if you don't hear from me for a while, it's because I work a lot, and they're cool with that. And then all of a sudden a woman goes, hey, if you don't hear from me a while, it's because I work a lot. And the guy goes, yeah, you shouldn't be dating then. What the hell?
Yeah. Yes.
Here comes that goofy face.
Can I tell you, as a woman that's single in this climate, okay? And Dave and I are, of course, of a certain age. Should that be in quotes? We are of a certain age. But anyway,
of that age.
As I was going through my 20s and 30s, it was a standard thing that women were supposed to defer to men because men were supposed to be busy. Men were busy people.
Yep.
And we were supposed to know going in that men were supposed to be, they were doing things, and we needed to stop asking them to spend time with us. We were really, societally, we were programmed with this information. So the funny thing is,
and it was different back then. So it was more accepted that way because guys worked and women stayed at home years ago. You know,
right? But not when we were growing up. I mean, when we were growing up, we were working. But it was still, we were still dealing with like the residual stigma of that, probably from the 60s, 50s, and 60s.
Exactly. Yeah.
So even though we weren't really dealing with it in real time, we were still getting like that impression and that programming from society that like we were supposed to occupy ourselves. We were supposed to go get the girls together and go do a knitting.
Yeah,
whatever it is. You know, whatever. We were all supposed to just go play gin rummy and stop bothering everybody.
And wait till my phone call. Don't bother me. I'm at work.
Right. And so I thought that was, I mean, I always question, you know, everybody who's listened to the podcast at this point knows me well enough to know that I question everything societally. So I was always like, oh, okay. I mean, so when I got older and, you know, the feminism, in life swung a little more this way. The pendulum of feminism swung. Women started to, okay, you know, maybe I'll get married someday, but right now I want to get into my career. I want to go to college. I want to get my degree. But as we got older, this is what started happening. So we're living in a world now where women are like working 80 hours a week.
Yeah, they do the same hours as men do. There's no difference.
They want to work. It's not like I mean, sure, there are some women out there that are working and they're not happy with it. But I mean, for the most part, hopefully everybody that's working wants to work. This is what we fought for. Don't get me wrong. What you choose to do is your business. But
of course,
if you're working 80 hours a week and, you know, let's say you're a single mother. I mean, I'm not personally a single mother, but for those who are, they have kids at home, they've got babysitters to pay for, they got to go home, they got to cook food, they got to.
Yeah.
So if you're working and on top of that you have children,
right,
you don't have a whole lot of time to call someone back, and you don't have time to text all day long now.
No.
I do have a lot going on, but I don't have like children and dinners to cook and people to drive to soccer and all that crazy stuff. I do have friends that do. Well, as we get older, my friends' kids are getting a little older as well, but still, we set our lights up pretty well. So we have a lot going on. And so it's just funny now because guys have absolutely no patience whatsoever for like getting some kind of a text back or a phone call. It's just impossible for them to wait for this.
Yep.
And I think it's funny because we were supposed to be keeping ourselves busy. We were supposed to be like not bothering somebody.
Right.
Hey, she bothers me all the time. I mean, I work. She knows I work. I don't know how many guys I've ever heard say that.
Absolutely.
She knows I work a lot. I mean, I don't understand. What was I supposed to do? I mean, I know guys who got divorced because their wives were not happy with them working so much.
Right. Yep.
And they were like, well, I work all the time. I mean, she knew that when I met her. I mean, I've heard that explanation a million times in a conversation. So it's just funny. So now you meet somebody and you're just kind of like, they'll send you a message. I have seen messages come in for women that I know that are friends of mine. Like obviously if a guy's texting you at 1 or 2 in the morning, get out of here with that. Right. But they're like upset that they're not getting responses at any hour. Like at any hour.
Right.
And we're like, I was asleep. That was 3 in the morning and I have to get up for 6. Are you insane?
Yeah. That's
giving me a hard time about that or whatever. Or I personally get text like all day long in the middle of the day. And I'm like, are these people working? What do these people do? Because
I mean, look, and I know people say it and we're talking about that one side of it for now. Yes, we know it happens both ways for sure. Absolutely.
Right. It does. I mean, I'm just saying that it's a new thing. It seems to be a new thing in the other direction.
The new thing is, right. The new thing is in the other direction. Like there's always been guys, there's always been women who will be like, you don't have time. You don't have time for me. If you want, and you see the memes all over the place. If he has time, he'll make time for you, which is absolutely true eventually. Right at the beginning. And we're not talking about, by the way, we're not talking about if you're in a full blown relationship and you're living with somebody,
right?
You're going to get back. Can you pick up bread on the way home? I'm not going to.
Excuse me, but everybody doesn't like me when I say this, but if you live with somebody, I mean, you live with them, you like see them all the time. How much time do you need with somebody that you see next to you in bed? Like, I'm just saying, don't get me wrong. You should put aside time that you have that you spend with each other exclusively. I'm not saying don't do that.
Yeah.
If you live with somebody 24/7 and you're complaining that you don't get spent time with, like, I just have to sit you down and ask you.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you're looking at this person every day.
Yeah, true. But there are certain situations. First of all, I hate texts. I can't stand them. I do them because they're the thing today.
I'm like that with the phone. I'm exactly like you, but with the phone. I'll do phone calls because I know they're necessary, but I don't like them.
Yeah, no, like I'd rather have a phone conversation with somebody because I get a lot to say. Get on the phone, a lot of fucking shit comes out of our mouth. There's no way we could have a text conversation. It couldn't happen. It just wouldn't. It would literally take us 10 days to be able to get the communication.
Like 1 hour,
in an hour conversation, right? So I've been talking to somebody from a dating app, and she's really cool. I've sent her messages, and there's been times where she sent me a message and I don't respond for a while, and I've sent her messages and she hasn't responded. Do I take that personally? No, of course I don't. I know she's a busy person, and that's okay. She'll get to me when she can. Now, that being said, I'm interested in pursuing this to see where it goes, so I am. And does that mean that I expect her to return my text immediately? No. If I send her a text saying good morning, that's it. It's me sending her a text. She may have seen it. She may not have seen it. It doesn't make a difference. I don't take that personally. Look, and I know that people out there, because I'm the type of person, I respond pretty quickly. That's just who I am. I can't stand that little one showing up there saying I got a text message. So I open it and I read it, and it takes me 2 seconds. I respond. There are people that believe that everybody.
But it also doesn't. It doesn't determine your level of interest. It has nothing to do with that.
No, it doesn't, because somebody could send me a text message that I have no interest in it at all. And I still will respond at the same speed.
Right.
So, if I'm in a meeting or if I'm busy, I'll look at it later and then I'll respond. Now, if somebody's asking me a big, long question, it's going to take me a minute to answer. Then I'll be like, oh, I'll get back to that. And sometimes I forget. I'm a human being, right?
Right.
So, I don't take any of that personally. Now, with that being said, if we start dating and things are going good and, then I get a good morning text, I probably will respond. I will respond to it anyway, but I would expect that the person will respond in a timely manner. And that doesn't have to be like within minutes or even an hour. If they respond 4 hours later and say, "Oh, good morning. I've been at work all day," whatever, I'm good. It's fine. I don't. And again, this is part of the double standard thing where guys were trained to expect somebody to be sitting waiting for them. There's even songs about it, sitting by the phone waiting for your call and blah, blah, blah. It was a normal thing years and years ago. It's not today. So guys, if you are being bothered because somebody's not answering your text or your call when you have a moment, doesn't mean your moments are aligning with their moments. That's all.
Right.
It's as simple as that.
In my own personal experience, I have just dealt with less patience with somebody dealing with me. And so when somebody starts off the whole thing saying, "Hey, listen, I may have to do this and that, and whatever during the day. So if I don't get back to you right away," and I breathe like a huge sigh of relief, like, "Oh God, good. Yeah. Here's somebody who's not going to bother me," because I don't get back to people right away either, and I want somebody that gets that. Yeah, so I'm usually happy to hear it, but wouldn't you know it, those are the people that are like, "Well, I didn't hear from you for like 3 hours." Like, well, okay, wait a minute. You're the guy that told me that I should be okay with you not getting back to me right away because you have stuff to do. How is that not the same thing?
Well, that was
different.
A perfect example of a double standard.
Exactly.
Right?
So,
it's good for him, but not good for you. So,
it's kind of funny. But yeah, and I understand because of this pendulum swing that there are a lot of changes that are being made.
The change happened a long time ago.
It's still happening.
I mean, I get it, but are you telling me? I mean, women have been working for years and years now. I mean, years.
Right, but I think even though, yeah, but I guess, well, first of all, we've got a couple of different generations, but also, I believe that the stigma, just like when we were growing up, the stigma of the last couple of decades, we're still, what people expect is still on a delay from what's actually happening. Meaning,
of course.
We're dealing with what people were expecting in the 80s and 90s, and that's not where we're at anymore. Right. And we also are, and I don't mean this in a, I'm not trying to, I don't know. when we as women had to occupy ourselves, we occupied ourselves. So now that's something we've learned how to do for a long time, 100 years or more.
Right. Yeah.
It's fairly new to men to go occupy themselves, and their default response, at least at first, until they learn how to get a little more socially fluent, is to just throw a tantrum. I mean, that's just
right. Which is weird to me because the pendulum shift is taking men a long time to switch. The women, on the other hand, have switched really quick, to the point.
It's probably because it's what we wanted.
No, not that. No, I'm talking about as far as somebody getting mad because you don't respond right away. I met somebody.
Well, we got busy. We were too busy to do that.
No, but it still happens, is what I'm saying.
Right.
So, I just recently had a woman, and she's an older woman too, and she's like, apparently you don't have time to date because I sent you a message, and I said, I'm sorry, I've been working all day. And she was like, well, I texted you like 4 hours ago. And I go, and I'm responding now because I have time. When I'm working, I don't have time. Why do I need to explain that? And that goes both ways, by the way.
Right.
A woman shouldn't have to explain that either. If you know, first of all, if you're texting a woman, you should know whether or not she's working. I know.
And when you first meet somebody, I get it. You have to get used to somebody's schedule. If it's not a usual schedule, obviously there's a lot of 9-to-5ers, right? But let's say that it's a lot
more non-9-to-5ers that I've been.
It's starting to change, right? Yeah, it's starting to change. That's another thing.
Like weird hours and stuff,
right. That's another thing, and that's fine. I don't ever fault anybody for texting me outside of an hour or during an hour that I'm working, if they've never really met me or they don't know that much about me. I get that.
Yeah, of course.
But then once I tell you that,
yeah,
maybe twice, 3 times, okay.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, if you're not doing anything while I'm working and you're texting me and I'm not responding, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I don't know.
I make it clear to everybody. I straight up say, you can text me anytime you want, because if I'm busy, or you can even call me, because if I'm in a meeting, I'm not answering it.
Right. So I tell people that too. You can't bother me because I'm just not going to pick it up. It's like you're not going to get a hold of me unless I want you to. Period.
Exactly. And don't take that personal. Nobody should take that personal. And
I feel like it's just like I said, I feel like for men there's a lack of control happening, and they're not happy about the lack of control that's happening.
I think you may be right.
I'm not saying everybody's like this, but I think in general they're losing a lot of the control of the relationship in the dating process, and their response to that is to just kick and scream and be like,
right. It's a whole different animal, right? I mean, we talked about this.
It's better than it used to be. Yeah, it's different.
Guys were taught one way, including myself growing up. You know, if you want somebody, you be persistent, and women were taught play hard to get. We've already done this in a past episode. Right. So we're not going to beat on that. But again, all these things have changed, right? Because now, if you're persistent, you're a stalker. But here's the kick. And we already talked about this. And it goes the same way with text, right? Like, damned if you do, damned if you don't. Like, for me, like, I tell people straight up, I work a lot. And, if you send me a message anytime you want to, you're not going to bother me, because you're right. I'm not going to respond until I can.
Right.
And I don't need to get shit for that. And again, guys shouldn't give shit to a woman for the same thing. There's no difference, right? Because me being busy is no more important than you being busy. Just because you're a woman, you have the same busyness that I have, right?
And I think there's a little, there's a little bit of underlying subtext of how busy can you be as a woman. I didn't get, but you bringing that up makes sense. There are guys that are like, oh, well, I'm busy. When I'm busy, I'm busy. But when she's busy, I don't think it's as important. I'm not saying that they think that at top of mind, but I think there's an underlying.
Watch this double standard. Ready for this one? A stay-at-home mom.
Yeah.
Will be busier than any guy that's going to work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. 100%. Because here's the thing. If you text her, she's not sitting there watching soap operas. She's taking care of children. And those kids are going to, look, just spend some time with a single mom and watch what happens. When the kid comes in from outside and he's covered in dog shit because he rolled in it. Now she's picking him up and carrying him in the bathroom. You're texting. She's in the bathroom wiping shit off, gagging in the toilet. You expect her to stop doing that and make a text
and
back?
Say something back like good morning.
You don't get butthurt?
Get out of here with that. Right.
So
she didn't say good morning back to me.
Doesn't even work.
Exactly. It's speaking of stay-at-home moms, there's a few, Lana, as I am, I like to have my lists of things, right? So you brought up stay-at-home mom. There are a few things that I wrote down for like standard, double standard type, a standard, double standard. Said that. Yeah. Said that twice. Things that are seen as a double standard. I just wanted to sort of bring up a little bit of stuff, and you can tell me what you think about these things.
Yes.
So for women, we have double standards that we usually complain about, and a lot of them are fairly common. I'll list these. Wage issues. Wage issues on the workplace, depending on where it is and all that. Of course, there's a bunch of nuances to why that is, but at the end of the day, that's the general complaint. Women that are called bossy, bitchy, mean, or strong because they're assertive, whereas if men did that, they would be
correct,
good, whatever you want to call it. They're good negotiators, they're good businessmen, blah blah blah. When we do it, we're shrill. Right?
Correct. Yep.
Body count numbers.
Oh God, don't get me started with that.
I know. I'm saying this for women. If we have had the exact same body count as a man, that would make us worse than they are. You're a double standard about that.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, I've heard that since I was a little kid. A guy that with a lot of women is a stud. A stud is a positive thing for a man, by the way. It's not a bad thing.
Right.
And a girl being called a whore is a bad thing.
Right.
Right. So if somebody if somebody is sexually active and they prefer sex with multiple partners, that's their business. Right. And it shouldn't make a difference. Like,
I want to say to men who, and don't get me wrong, you can choose whatever you want. If you're the type that says, well, I'm not going to date a girl who's slept with, I don't know, let me pull a number out of my ass.
Say 20.
Say 20. I was going to say that's so funny. I was going to say 22. Yeah. Let's say that you slept with 20 men and you're in your early to mid 30s as a woman. If you're a man and you've slept with the same amount, is that a low number for you? Right? Right. You have absolutely no right to say that she's worse than you are for the same exact number.
It's not a worse thing. That's where the double standard comes in, right? So guess what? If I meet somebody and that happens to come up and she's like, well, I've slept with about 100 men, I'd be like, well, good deal. She's sexually active or has been sexually active her whole life, which means she's probably sexually compatible with me. Why can I say if I've slept with 100 women, let's say, in my entire life, and she has slept with one, well, maybe she's not even into sex. I don't know. I mean,
it's funny because us women have come up with a theory, and we believe that the more we've slept with, the better experience we have, and the easier we can judge the guys we sleep with. Therefore, guys who have a standard for women that have slept with more than 5 guys in their life are very worried that they are going to be judged poorly for the fact that they have no sexual skills.
Gotcha.
We believe that that's part of the reason that happens.
And I, you know what? I believe you to be correct. And I'm going to tell you why. I remember once. So as most of you know, I was in a band and, there was a lot of backstage stuff. And, I remember sleeping with somebody for the first time. And she said, I was petrified to sleep with you because you have so much experience. I was worried. So yeah, you're probably right. The guys are probably.
It may not be the only thing, but we think it's a really big factor.
So here's the thing. You know that damn well guys are worried about their penis. It's huge. Well, the guys that say, oh, I'm huge. They're the tiny little guys that have nothing to do.
Men have this policy of I'm going to sell it to the best of my ability and then I'll deal with it later. When I sell it, I'll come show up later and I hope I can.
How do you tell somebody you're huge and then
right.
still want to have sex with them when you're not? They
just want this. I swear they just want to get to the next step. I'll worry about it when I get there. I don't know how that makes sense to them.
But the reason why I brought up the penis size is I believe that a guy is probably more worried that if she's seen that many penises, she may not like his.
And, we keep saying over and over again that it's really not the size, is what you're doing with it. What are you doing with it? We're not lying about that.
No,
within reason, obviously. If it's a pencil eraser, we can't do much with that. Okay. But I'm just saying, as long as it's got some kind of average size to it and you have some kind of sexual ability and skill.
Correct.
Or, and some of us are great trainers, so you may not know everything, but you need to learn the woman. This is the thing about men. I was at a bar one night. Like, this is like the first and last time I've ever been to a bar, but anyway.
Yeah, one time.
I was at the bar one time. Years ago, I was in my 20s. I was sitting next to like 3 or 4 guys, and they're doing their thing. They're drinking, and they're going on and on about the women they've been with and blah, blah, blah. And I'm overhearing it. I overhear this stuff a lot as a DJ. I don't know.
Of course you do.
Everybody else does, and this guy's like, I did this thing. And guy's like, what did you do? And, he was trying to explain what he did to some woman in bed. And he's like, all women love this. I stopped him.
Good for you.
I stopped him. I said, wait a minute. You cannot possibly tell anybody in this group of men that all women love anything you do. There's just no way. There's no one thing that all women are going to love because women are so different. And I'm telling you this because I have the equipment to make the statement.
That's correct.
I have friends and we have this conversation all the time that somebody will come into our life and we'll have sex with them and they'll just go down they'll just do this thing. And we're like, what? No offense, but in our heads, we're like, what the is this? What is he doing? What? It's not anything, they just come in with this formula and either we respond to it or we don't. And I get that they need to come in with something, but they'll come in with this thing. And some guys will tell you that there's something wrong with you because you're not responding the right way. And I know it's their way of handling the sexual experience because they just think that's that one thing that worked with the last 3 women somehow. But then they meet you and you're like, yeah, no, none of that's working for me. What else you got?
Yep.
And this guy's like, yeah, I do this thing and women go crazy. And I'm like, the only thing that you can be sure of with women is that none of them like the same thing. So you
Correct.
have to start from the beginning.
That's right.
You might strike gold and have something that maybe more women than not will like, but that doesn't mean all of them do. I guarantee it. You're going to run into one someday that's going to be like, if you do that again, I'll punch you in your face. You know what I mean? And then you're going to have to go into your toolkit and come up with something different. And what you should do, really, if you have to, and I know a lot of guys don't think this is sexy and romantic, ask.
That's right.
Ask. Who has time to try to guess for an hour?
Communicator, and I think everybody needs to be, because, here's the thing. It's so stupid to think that you have, and, guys, maybe, I don't know, maybe most guys, I like what I like, and I have no problem telling somebody, I've had girls go, I'm the best at doing this. And I go, with who?
Right.
Because we're all different,
right.
What that last guy might have done it for him, may not even, I may not hate it. So, and there are women that are so different, they're externally, externally excited, or, it's some women can't handle it direct. Some people like it. Well,
basically it means that there are so many different things that women. Different. Yeah.
Correct. So communicate and don't just assume that
There's some kind of a weird myth that men are supposed to come into your life. And I'm going to speak to women quickly on sex. I know we've done this before. If you, as a woman, do not know what works for you, you cannot expect a man to come into your life and have any idea what works for you. You first need to know. If you don't know, then you can't get mad at anybody that comes along that's outside of yourself and get mad at them because they're doing the wrong thing. You can't do that. Now, some men are very good about coming in and making sure that they are very receptive and they learn and they pay attention and meet those are the men that you've met, right? But you don't know what works for yourself. And so therefore you haven't had to learn. But I got to tell you, if you don't learn what works for you, I don't understand why any woman would just not know sexually what works for them. Unless you're having sex to you're having sex to just kind of get through it and you don't really care about it or whatever. I don't know. So, but if you're interested in sex and you want to have sex, why wouldn't you want to enjoy the sex you're having? So learn what it is that works for you. Is it fast? Is it slow? Is it up high?
Yeah, you should know your body.
Right. Yeah. Just enough so that you can give direction. Who wants to, why does everybody want to play charades? I don't understand.
No.
We don't have time for that. I don't know.
Yeah. Listen, so I did a live show once on Facebook, and it was live at a sex toy place,
right?
And it was sponsored by them, and I had a physical live audience there, and it was great. And I did the show was on men who are jealous of sex toys, and which I was shocked at how many couples showed up, and every guy raised his hand that he did not want his woman using a sex toy. So my question was why?
That goes back to the thing where they feel inadequate and they don't want somebody that knows too much about what they want because, right.
Yeah. And it's
insecurities are horrible.
The thing is that people were not educated, and that's why, right? Because there are things a sex toy can do that I can never do. I can't vibrate.
And so what?
Yeah.
Right.
No, so what? Yeah. So use it during sex.
Right.
And that's okay. Because if the number is 97, I think it's 97.3%, I'll have to look it up, but it's high like that, of women have an orgasm externally, not internally. Guess where our penis goes? Internally. Right? So you plowing away is never going to give her an orgasm.
But a lot of guys watch porn, and at least when I was growing up, the porn was indicative of that, right? It taught men that was what worked because that was what they were watching. But it's not the way it really works. It just works really good on the screen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But we don't want to have a whole sex episode. We want to move on a little bit. Do you mind?
Yeah. No. So the double standards thing. And that's another thing too.
I have more listing, but go ahead.
Yeah. So that's another thing. Since we're here, is guys are I wouldn't want my woman watching porn. I'm like, why? You watch porn?
Right.
That's different. Why is it different?
It is different. Yeah.
Your sexuality any different than a woman's sexuality?
Because we've been taught as women that men are a slave to their sex drive. I mean, I don't know how many times I've heard that they just have absolutely no control, and they have to yield to their sex drive at every turn. And and that's their excuse for a lot of things that they do. And I always say this, okay, well, I'm a man, and I go back to the caveman days and when we were animals and blah, blah, blah. And I always say, well, do you pee out in the street? Like, do you just pull your pants down and just start peeing? Well, no. Why? Well, because I can't do that in the street. I'm like, yeah. So you learned not to do that. If that's an urge and it's supposed to be so natural and we're all supposed to just be okay with it, then you would do it. But you learned how to control that.
Learn to control it. Correct.
That. You know how to keep clothes on and go find a stall somewhere. So if you can do that, you can do that with anything.
Yeah. So if that's a thing, and this shouldn't be a double standard. So if we have these urges that we do, and as a man, I can tell you, yes, I do have urges. And guess what, guys? Women do too.
Of course we do. So
does that make them bad? No.
Yes, it makes them bad to that. I believe that it makes them think we're bad
because they're worried.
Yes, it worries them. We might actually. There's the standard of, and I'll start at this beginning. It's unfortunate and it's unfair to some guys, but it is the guys that create the standard. So the guys are upset, but they're creating the standard that makes them upset. Men do not have sex as much as women because men are usually in pursuit of women. So because of that, and here's my analytical mind, I'm going to break this down. Again?
I didn't get that. You said men don't have sex as much as women?
Men can't have sex on as much as they'd like to. I should put it that way. But I'm going to break this down as to why. Because men pursue women the way they do, and the dynamic rolls in that direction.
Yep.
If as a woman, I can walk outside right now. I mean, my street doesn't have anybody on it, but let's say that there's a bunch of people on my street.
You could go to the local bar right now.
I go to the local bar right now, and I could just be like, you know what? I really feel like I need to get one in. Anybody want to have a quick 15 minutes? I could walk out with a guy in like no time at all. And I don't even think the guy would care who I was. I mean, there are some guys that are just like, yep, let's go.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I could find that anywhere. Men can't. Men would love for that to happen, probably because they can't have it. And it doesn't work for them that way. There's probably a little bit of that.
Women are more decision makers when it comes to
sex. We're the decision makers, right? So
absolutely.
We are more, I think we scrutinize more because we have the ability to scrutinize more. And yes, sure, we get more coming at us, so we get to pick and choose. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. But that's the dynamic, right? So a woman who is sexually aware and who's happy and who enjoys sex and who wants to have sex is like completely dangerous for a guy because we can go find it within 10 minutes. Whereas men can be all about wanting all of that, but it's a little bit tougher for men to find willing partners in general.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
So if we want them, we can be having sex quickly and we can be having sex frequently. And there's no. And
it doesn't have to be some ugly man that can't get laid.
Right. It doesn't really. It just if it's male.
If a guy goes out,
but also, I always say, take it to the water buffalo meeting. I mean, this is your side of it that's causing this issue.
Yes.
So if you could be a little more discriminatory about who you deal with, then maybe women would have less to choose from. But you guys create this dynamic. That's
right. That's right.
You guys compete. Women don't. We do, but not as much. Of course, there are women who compete with other women, but
I think it's getting worse today.
It is getting a little worse today, but that's because women are now in a different place where we can be assertive about our sexuality, and if we want something, we can go get it, and we don't care as much anymore about what you think about what we're doing.
Right.
We're starting to, because we understand. It's funny. The psychology of it's funny. We're understanding now what's behind you not liking that.
You're yes, and you're starting to understand women now have got the same abilities that men have been doing for years, right? So
yeah, I feel like there's a whole story that I think we got into a couple episodes ago where there's this woman and she was married to some guy who was living overseas, and the two of them had this relationship where they decided to be open about it. And she came into a group that I frequent, and she was just like, you know what, I decided, my husband and I talked about it, and we decided that I would meet a guy here. I would just, if there were guys on sites that want to hook up, I would take them up on that. Because I don't care. I'm already married. I don't want to get involved. I don't want a relationship. So I specifically looked for men who were looking for hookups.
Yep.
And then she was just like, and I'm really mad because half of the guys that were looking for hookups are full of it.
Yeah.
And, she went on and on about so if I say that it's okay with me too, then all of a sudden they have a problem with the fact that I'm okay with it. It's frustrating. Right. And then we started talking to her about why, and she was just like, well, they come over, they want to stay, they want to go out to dinner, all these things that, like, I'm telling them, I know you told me you didn't want any of this stuff.
And we,
right.
If you want, listen to the sex episode because the whole story about that is there. But it's that's
another double standard. It's kind of like, it's only okay if he decides it's okay.
Yes.
I call that the right of first refusal. Do you understand?
Listen, there's two people involved.
Right.
There's and with this double standard stuff, there's no way to successfully have anything as a double standard because we are both decision makers.
Right.
I decide whether or not I want to sleep with somebody, and if I have, a little bit of self-worth, then I will pick and choose who I would sleep with. Now,
and you would want them to do the same. You would want the person that you choose to be just as picky with you as they are. Correct. And if they decided to no, you're okay with that because you also could decide to no, right?
That's correct.
I think Dave is, I probably know Dave pretty well at this point.
You think so?
Yeah, I do. I think that for the most part, if it's tit for tat, I believe it. And Dave and I agree on a lot of things. And that's one thing we both get along on really well is that, like, we don't think any group should have an advantage over another just because of some stupid societal thing, right?
No.
I just wanted to bring up a couple more things before I forget.
You did bring up pay.
I did bring up pay. And I know, I said there's a bunch of sub issues that go with that.
We should definitely talk about that because there are some things. I've done research on that too.
Right.
And I have some good, probably not rebuts, but they may be a little different than your findings. So we should definitely talk
talk about that. I know that we are looking at, I just want to make sure we don't have, because you should see this list of stuff. I just wanted to kind of go through some things let's go through the list. Then we'll come back to that. But when women get married, they're usually expected to change their last name, which is odd. I mean, at this point in time, why? A lot of women are okay with that, and that's fine if those two people choose that. But it's weird because society almost expects that from everybody. And at this point, really, that doesn't necessarily need to happen. I mean, it did years ago, and I don't know that it necessarily needed to then, but there was a reason for it. But now it's kind of, we're out of an era where that's necessary. So anyway, that's one of the other things. Allowance of reproductive surgery, meaning that for some reason, women are given much more of a hard time when they walk into a doctor's office and say, I want sterilization.
Yes.
They shouldn't. That's their choice. They're adults, but for some reason they have to get permission from somebody.
Yeah, true. Yep.
To do it, whereas men can walk in and get a vasectomy and nobody cares.
Yes. and people will argue that vasectomies are reversible. No, they're not.
Sure.
They're not. There's a surgery they can do to try to reverse it, but chances are pretty good it won't. It's a very low number that will actually reverse. I looked into it already.
Right.
Because I'm considering
but men are probably not getting as much flack from their doctors if they want it.
Correct. You are 100%.
Women are it's oh no, are you sure? Are you sure? You have to go through an act of Congress to get.
Yeah, you do. You have to actually
hysterectomy or to get a tubal ligation as a woman. You have to check with a bunch of people first, you don't know what you're doing. Right. But anyway, cleavage versus breastfeeding, which is the weirdest double standard ever. But I agree with that. Whereas society enjoys cleavage, but frowns upon public breastfeeding. That's mostly in America, I would imagine. But I thought that was interesting. Meaning we like to see Victoria's Secrets and we like to see bikinis and blah, blah, blah. That's the kind of the thing. But guys seem to kind of like boobs in general. But when it's a baby's hanging off, it's not sexy for them and they want to put away.
See, that's the problem is if you're out in public, sexy is not okay to me. Mm-hmm. So I do find it sexy when a woman is breastfeeding because I think it's a very beautiful thing. Mm-hmm. And do I consider, oh boy, I wish that was me instead of the baby? No, of course not. That's, that's silly.
It seems like there's a more of a prudish attitude towards breastfeeding than there is for a woman walking around in a bikini, but it's no different.
New York City, they're allowed to go, there's a certain area in New York City, they can go totally topless, nude, completely.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So what the hell?
Right.
Breastfeeding's not hurting anybody. Now, I think if I go back in time,
right.
There was issues where any type of breast being shown at all. When I was a kid growing up, it was my mother who had a problem with it because the guy she's with can also see that. And that was where the problem was.
Right.
Guys were getting in trouble for women that were breastfeeding. So that would be probably where it comes from.
Maybe.
Is guys don't want to get in trouble. I don't think guys are going to get in trouble anymore. So get over it.
Right. I just, there have been, I'm not saying that it's common, but I have seen that men are just kind of like, oh, we don't want to see that. Oh, we don't need to see that. It's kind of like, okay, but it's a boob. You are okay with that when it's dressed up different.
It's a boob. I don't, that's dumb.
The dad bods versus heavier women, meaning like dad bods are in style right now and everybody's okay with that. But like if women are a little heavy, there's like some kind of stigma to that. I don't personally, and I don't think Dave and I don't really care what women look like or what men.
I don't want to.
We think everybody should be whoever they are, and that's their own thing.
You are. That's it.
But in general, I guess there are women who believe that men are more okay with the dad bod thing, whereas the dad bod thing is more of a trend. Whereas if women are a little on the heavy side, they seem to be more shamed for it. I guess that's true. Honestly, I don't. But that's what they wrote. So,
that's right.
Hollywood standards, meaning if you're a man and you're 65 years old in Hollywood, you can get all the work you want. But as soon as you hit about 50 as a female actress,
it's difficult.
As an actor, it is very difficult to get a job, and the roles are harder to land.
Look what they're doing to the men in society too on movies.
That's another thing. Yeah.
You watch a movie. There's going to be an older guy in his 50s, and he's going to be dating a girl in the movie. In the movie itself, that's in her early 30s, late 20s. So guys are looking at it going, oh, she's hot. Yeah, she's fucking hot because she's 26 years old.
Right.
Of course she's hot. And he's in his 50s or 60s, and they're still having a sex scene. And so guys are looking at that as like real life, going, well, why can't I have one? Well, you can, but
but it'll cost you.
Not only is it going to cost you, but it's also going to be not as realistic as it is on the TV because it's fake.
Of course. The last thing I wanted to bring up for women should, with kids, if a man and a woman are married, women tend to be expected to take care of the children. Men seem to be praised for helping with the children.
Yeah.
Men own those children just as much as women do. Men are just as much of a parent as them. So when they pitch in around the house, they're not helping. They are parenting. That's what they should be.
Yeah, I can't stand hearing a guy saying, oh, I got to babysit my kids tonight. I'm like, babysitting?
Those are your children. Like, you're supposed to be pitching in.
Babysit your kids.
Right. It sucks that sometimes women are expected to take on the entire responsibility of the children. And if a guy,
that's an agreement. That's different.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that within their relationship, that's their choice, but I'm saying societally, if you see a guy doing what a parent should be doing, it's like, oh my, look what a good father he is. Wow, he's doing these things.
Stay-at-home dad has been looked down on as some kind of queer since day one.
Oh, well, I don't know about that, but I do.
Oh yeah,
I've heard that they feel like they're lazy and they're losers and are not doing anything well in their lives. I've heard that part.
Well, yeah.
That was another thing. I was going to get into the men double standards.
Yes. It usually comes from men.
For men, double standards. Here we go. Harassment from women seen as funny as opposed to important. Seen in public with children is as pedophilia. This is what men are saying. I wrote this down because I wanted to make sure that I was equal with men.
Yeah, that's insane to me. And you're right.
Drunk sex. Sex, rape can only be seen in one direction. If a woman rapes a man, it's no big deal. If a man rapes a woman, it's a big deal. I get that.
I want to say a quick story about that. I have a friend who was a registered sex offender for 20 years because he was 30 and he was with a 26-year-old at a party and they had sex. They were both hammered out of their mind. She said, I would have never had sex with him if I wasn't that drunk. Well, he was drunk too. Right. Why did he go to prison for rape?
Yeah,
because she was drunk.
Right.
That is a double standard for sure as well.
And I disagree that that's right. That's not right either. The dumb factor on TV shows right now, a lot of fathers and people, guys that are in TV shows are being seen as idiots. And when I was a kid, that wasn't happening. Like in the 80s, you had stuff like you had like Bob Saget and you had Michael Gross and you had these guys that were fathers, and it was like they were legitimate dads and they worked and they were whatever, and they were very, now guys are seen as kind of like buffoons. A lot of the shows, and the newest shows I couldn't even tell you because I don't watch them, but as time went on in the like 90s and 2000s, it started to be that the men were like sort of the joke. Sure. Right. So there were men that are complaining that they don't like that. The way that relationships end is seen as a double standard to men. If he breaks it off, he can't commit. If she breaks it off, nobody says anything.
Say that one again.
At the end of the relationship, depending on who ends it, if men end the relationship, it's because he can't commit. But if a woman ends it, nobody sees her as wrong. That's what men are saying, right? Yep.
True.
Female bi is okay, but male bi is technically gay, and I thought that was interesting. I believe bi is bi. I think both men and women that are bi are kind of gay, but
well, you have gay tendencies, of course you do.
Right, but
you have to have an attraction to the same sex.
But also, if you have an attraction to the opposites, I don't know. I think it's transitioning for both sides, but
I don't know what it is.
I'm not in that position, so I don't really know. But I don't think it's one sided, not the other. I think they're both the same. Women that are mad at a guy have good reason. Every time a woman's mad at a guy, nobody says that she's wrong. Everybody thinks she's got a good reason to be. I've never heard of that. I've kind of not heard of that before, but that makes sense. Sexual abuse of boys by women is seen as a myth. That is true.
What?
Sexual abuse of boys by women is seen as a myth, meaning if you're a boy in high school and you get your teacher hits on you and sleeps with you, everybody claps. Yep. Well, okay. If men do it with girls, it's a big deal. It shouldn't be bad in both directions. It's horrible and it shouldn't be.
So I think the misconception is because, and I've talked openly about this before, it happened to me in high school, and I didn't hate it. Now, again, even when I was molested,
it was still not right.
Guy, no, absolutely not right.
But
I was a child.
How you were taught, right?
Yeah, I was a child, but I was getting mine. That's how I felt.
Right.
But it's still a form of abuse, regardless. But even when I was a little boy, getting molested by another man, I still didn't hate it. You know, I wasn't pinned down and raped like brutally. So to me, I never went through that whole drama. I mean, it created drama in my life. Don't get me wrong. Right. But again, and you're absolutely right. It is it looks, if a guy claims that he was raped or even abused, right,
by an older woman, yes,
or
that's what
even,
they're saying,
even abused physically, like by a woman.
Well, we didn't. I got that coming up too.
I'm sure you do. Okay,
I do. Women can hit men if they retaliate. They're wrong. Stay-at-home dads are losers. Stay-at-home moms are heroes.
Yeah.
A male that's a nurse must have become a failed doctor. I thought that was interesting.
It is.
Sexual assault from a female is supposed to be okay. Nobody should complain about that if a woman sexually assaults a man as a female of any age. Criminal sentencing for men is worse. I don't know about that. I guess it depends on the situation. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I just said
sexual stuff. It is. It absolutely is.
Okay, they didn't say anything about sexual. They just mentioned it in general. So that's why I wasn't sure what they were.
You look at the teachers that have gone to jail, their sentence was a lot lighter than a guy who had molested a girl. Yeah.
Right. But I mean, they're just saying criminal sentencing. Like it could be anything. Like if a guy, breaks into a house, whatever, that men tend to get the worst end of the stick as far as the sentencing goes.
I don't know.
Men with feelings are pansies, guys who cry are weak and not masculine. You have actually said that. Not that you believe it, but you've said that you agree that that's a standard that you've heard, right?
Well, it's a standard we were taught, right? We talked about that in one of our episodes where, a man is taught, don't cry, get mad, right? And we talked about and I'm not a crier. And probably because it's been ingrained in me not to.
Right.
We hope you enjoyed part 1 of Double Standards. Stay tuned tomorrow for part 2. Have a good one. Hey, you just listened to Love and Life with Lana and Dave. Thanks for joining us, and we hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please share the podcast, leave us a comment or review, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any new content. We'll see you soon.